Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my classes, Unleash English. Now, in the previous video, which was on Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, I had said that there are some other metaphorical significance which we would take up in another video. So I'm here with the second part of the same video where I would compare and contrast it with Sonnet 73, which is that time of year thou mayst in me behold. Now, সবাই মনে করতে পারবে যে কি হলো রে বাবা আবার কেন ভিডিও দিচ্ছে and all that, but I thought that the two parts are absolutely necessary. যে মোটে 30 জন বা 40 জন আমার ভিডিও দেখেছে তাদের জন্য আমি এই সেকেন্ড পার্টটাও আপলোড করছি. So again I'm saying that please like my videos, subscribe to the channel, comment karo, share karo, ekটু support karo please. So let's start with today's video. Okay, now Sonnet 18, I had already discussed Sonnet 18 in my previous video. Please, if you haven't checked it out, you can go ahead and do that. And in Sonnet 18, I had also spoken about the tone of the poet lover. And we see that the tone of the poet lover in that sonnet is extremely confident. He seems to be a little narcissist, arrogant, boisterous, and he represents the typical attitude that we have when we are very young. রক্ত গরম মনে হচ্ছে যেন সব কিছু পারবো, and that's why he makes that bold assertion, so long as man can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this and this gives life to thee, which is the final couplet in Sonnet 18. এই কবিতাটাতে পোয়েটের একটু বয়স বেড়েছে এবং he is becoming a little worldly wise. So he's not making any of those claims that we see in Sonnet 18. He is not very overtly confident of his genius. He is rather mellowed down in this poem. বয়সের সাথে সাথে আমাদের we become even more wiser and we realize যে কিছু জিনিস আমাদের আয়ত্তের মধ্যে নেই. There are things which we cannot control, and thereby in this poem also he wants to attain immortality, or he wants to attain permanence, but he does not thinks that his genius or his literary talent alone can help him get it. Let's see how the poem goes, and then we'll be constantly comparing and contrasting it with Sonnet 18. So here he says, that time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang. So in Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, the poet was talking about summer. All the metaphors and the images were related to summer, and I had also explained in that video that summer was synonymous with everything that is wonderful, everything that must be celebrated and enjoyed, and winter was synonymous with everything that is very dark and dreary and bleak, and of course death. So here he is probably talking about the fall or the autumn, because he says when yellow leaves, এবং আমরা জানি যে foreign countries the leaves, they turn yellow or red or brown during the time of fall or autumn. So he's talking about that. Or none or few do hang. So on the superficial level, on the literal level, he is talking about fall, বাইরে fall, but আমরা জানি যে in Shakespeare the landscape is a reflection of the mindscape. So এখানে যখন বলছে fall বাইরে, autumn বাইরে, he's also probably talking about the autumn of his own life. বয়সের কথা বলা হচ্ছে, he's growing old. Upon those boughs which shake against the cold, ওইখানেও শেকিং এর কথা বলা হয়েছে, বাট ওখানে বলা হয়েছে দ্য রাফ উইন্ডস ডু শেক দ্য ডার্লিং বার্ডস অফ মে। ওই মেটাফারটা ইজ full of playfulness. It brings very comfortable imagery in our mind, whereas this metaphor, where the boughs are shaking or trembling with fear of the cold winds, fear of the winter, is definitely not playful at all. It is rather ominous. ভয়ের কম্প্যারিজনটা, ওই কম্প্যারিজন সনেট 18 এর যে মেটাফারটা ছিল, উইচ ইজ রাফ উইন্ডস ডু শেক দ্য ডার্লিং বার্ডস অফ মে, ওটাতে ভীষণ একটা ছেলে মানুষই ভাব ছিল, একটা খেলা করছি, হ্যাঁ, বার্ডসগুলো শেকড হচ্ছে অ্যান্ড অল দ্যাট। বাট এই মেটাফারটা ইজ ডেফিনেটলি নট চাইল্ডিশ অ্যাট অল, ইটস নট প্লেফুল অ্যাট অল, ইট ইজ রাদার স্কেরি, ইট ইজ রাদার ominous. Bare ruined choirs where late sweet birds sang. Of course, he is referring to the birds which have migrated towards warmer areas. আমরা জানি শীতকালেতে এইসব পাখিরা সব warmer areas এর দিকে চলে যায়. But it is also a reference to the religious anarchy that was happening at that time. The English church had been split. Catholicism and Protestantism were the two মেইন রিলিজন অ্যাট দ্যাট টাইম। এবং একটুখানি হিস্ট্রিটা যদি পড়ে নাও তাহলে খুব ভালো হয় যে কুইন এলিজাবেথের বাবা, বিকজ হি ওয়ান্টেড টু রিম্যারি, হি স্প্লিট দ্য চার্চ। সো যে ক্যাথলিক চার্চ ছিল, যেখানে কোয়ার্স গান গাওয়া হতো অ্যান্ড অল দ্যাট, all that was completely ruined, এবং একটা নতুন ধরনের ক্রিশ্চিয়ানিটির আবার শুরু করা হয়। এবং যারা এই কয়ের গান গাইতো তা সেই সব সেই সব জায়গাগুলোকে পুরো নষ্ট করে দেওয়া হয়, এবং একটা নতুন রিলিজন, নতুন ধারার ক্রিশ্চিয়ানিটি শুরু করা হয়। So this bare ruined choirs is probably an allusion to that, the splitting of the English church into Protestantism and Catholicism. এই ব্যাপারটাকেও একটা অ্যালিউশন, একটা রেফারেন্স করা হয়েছে এখানে। And of course, he is also referring to the migration of the birds towards warmer areas when winter starts to set in. In me thou seest the twilight of such day. So again here, the poet speaker or the narrator is also talking to the beloved, যেমন sonnet 18 এ করা হয়েছে। But sonnet 18 we were seeing a very robust, a very full of life, haughty, egoistic young lover who was like, oh, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to make you eternal, I'm going to preserve your beauty and all that. But in this poem, the speaker is a lot more subtle and a lot more sublime. And he is not making any claims anymore. He is rather at the mercy of the beloved. এবং নিজের বিলাভেডকে বলছে যে তুমি আমার মধ্যে এইরকম একটা সন্ধে দেখতে পাচ্ছ, টুয়াইলাইট ইজ হচ্ছে সন্ধে দেখতে পাচ্ছ, খুব তাড়াতাড়ি সে নিজের অন্ধকারের দিকে বা রাত্রের দিকে চলে যাচ্ছে, which is the metaphor for death. So he is at a point where he has grown older, and thereby he is very uncertain about the love of his beloved. He is like, okay, আমি তো বয়স হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এবার আগের মতো তো আমি নই, I do not know even in my old age whether I'll be loved and respected in the same way or not. So there is a lot of doubt, a lot of confusion in his tone, which is very different from the tone in sonnet 18, where he was very robust, full of life, very confident. So he says, in me thou means you, seest, দেখছো, see the twilight of such a day, আমার মধ্যে তুমি এই সন্ধ্যাটা দেখতে পাচ্ছ, as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away death's second self, that seals up all in rest. Now sleep has always been seen as death's second self. এটা আমরা ম্যাকবেথেও দেখেছি। যখন ডানকেনকে মারতে যায় ম্যাকবেথ, we have these allusion to sleep being referred to as death's second self, and we are seeing that here in this sonnet as well. Of course, when people are sleeping, they are almost like death, like they are inactive, they don't think anything, they can't react to situation, they do not know if there is a danger around, and they are not doing anything creative as well. For any artist, any minute which is not invested in any creative activity is like death. ওদের জন্য সর্বক্ষণ কিছু নতুন ভাবতে হবে, কিছু নতুন চিন্তা করতে হবে এবং কিছু নতুনভাবে লিখতে হবে, বলতে হবে, জানাতে হবে। সেসব না করতে পারা মানে মরে যাওয়া। So he's like, and in the metaphorical level also, the poet speaker is old and he is walking towards his death, which is almost the last sleep. It's like chirotare ghum. Yes, in Sonnet 18 also there is a reference to death, but there the poet speaker doesn't consider death to be a good contender at all. And he says that, death cannot brag. He uses the word brag, and he says death cannot brag that he had taken you away from me. So there, death has been completely nullified. But here, the ominous presence of death is very much felt. Death is almost like an evil presence lurking in the background, and the poet speaker constantly goes back to these thoughts of death. He's constantly reminded, he's ruminating these thoughts of death. যাই কিছু বলুক না কেন, ঘুরে ফিরে সেই মৃত্যুর মেটাফার্সে এসে আসছেই ওর মনে, which means to the readers we can understand that is very much there in his subconscious mind right now. It is absolutely dominating his creative urges. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that the ashes of his youth doth lie. So আগুনটা নিভে গেছে, এখন শুধু embers পড়ে আছে, একটু sparks পড়ে আছে. Again, that is a metaphor for old age, where we are not as productive as we were when we are young, but at the same time we are not dead as well. So there are these sparks still that you can see here and there, but of course it is not as vibrant and as luscious and as full of life as it was when we were young. So he refers to that change. Consumed with that which it nourished by, this thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong. So he says that this transition, the poet who was once at the helm of his affairs, who was so powerful and successful and he was a genius, now he is slowly walking towards his death. Here death can be, of course, literary, he was like going to die, or death could also mean creative numbness. He cannot create art as skillfully as he was doing earlier. So he says that you watch this transition that is happening in me, and this makes you love me more. To love that well which thou must live ere long. So if you continue to love me in this way, in such a selfless manner, then this love will be permanent. So one similarity between Sonnet 18 and this sonnet is, in both the poem, the poet lover is seeking permanence or eternity or immortality. He wants to defeat death and time. In the first poem, he did that by seeking refuge or seeking support in his creative abilities. In this poem, he does that by urging his beloved to keep him loving on. But again, the tones are very different in both the poems. That poem is set in summer, this poem is set in fall, and I have already explained the metaphorical resemblance of these seasons. Summer মানে যা কিছু ভালো, যা কিছু সুন্দর, যা কিছু যৌবন, যা কিছু জীবন, এবং এই কবিতাটাতে fall is reminds us of the beginning or the start of the ominous winter, and I said winter is synonymous with death. Again, the tones of both the poems are very different. There the poet is younger, he's more vibrant, he's more narcissist, arrogant, boisterous, and he is overconfident of himself. Here the poet is a little hesitant, he's a little worldly wise, he's subtle, and he's sublime. He is more aware of the practicalities. Okay, so I'll keep it till here for today's class. আবার বলছি, একটু প্লিজ আমার ভিডিওসগুলোকে শেয়ার করো তোমার বন্ধু বান্ধবদের মধ্যে, এবং আমাকে কমেন্টে জানিও আর কি টপিক করলে খুব ভালো হয় তোমাদের জন্য। এই চ্যানেলটা তোমাদের সাপোর্টের খুব দরকার, তো একটু লাইক, কমেন্ট, একটু শেয়ার, একটু সাবস্ক্রাইব করো প্লিজ। ওকে, চলো বাই। আচ্ছা, তোমাদেরকে না আমার বাড়ির ক্রিসমাস ট্রিটা একটু দেখিয়ে দিই। হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা, এই দেখো, তো আমার ছোট ছোট বাচ্চা আছে, ওদের জন্য আমাকে এসব করতেই হয়, কারণ ওরা এগুলো খুব এনজয় করে। ওকে, চলো।